The Blind Community Thrift Store radio reading service will begin shortly. We will be reading local news from around the Southwest Missouri area, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on YouTube, KSMU, and on the Audio Reader Network at Kansas University. For more information, please visit us at www.blindcommunitythriftstore.com. Please stay tuned as our broadcast will start soon. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube channel now. At Blind Community Thrift Store on YouTube, and more info about this radio reading service, Navalins, and the Blind Community Thrift Store at www.blindcommunitythriftstore.com. The Blind Community Thrift Store radio reading service will begin shortly. We will be reading local news from around the Southwest Missouri area, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on YouTube, KSMU, and on the Audio Reader Network at Kansas University. For more information, please visit us at www.blindcommunitythriftstore.com. Please stay tuned as our broadcast will start soon. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube channel now. At Blind Community Thrift Store on YouTube, and more info about this radio reading service, Navalins, and the Blind Community Thrift Store at www.blindcommunitythriftstore.com. The Blind Community Thrift Store radio reading service will begin shortly. We will be reading local news from around the Southwest Missouri area, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on YouTube, KSMU, and on the Audio Reader Network at Kansas University. For more information, please visit us at www.blindcommunitythriftstore.com. Please stay tuned as our broadcast will start soon. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube channel now. At Blind Community Thrift Store on YouTube, and more info about this radio reading service, Navalins, and the Blind Community Thrift Store at www.blindcommunitythriftstore.com. The Blind Community Thrift Store radio reading service will begin shortly. We will be reading local news from around the Southwest Missouri area, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on YouTube, KSMU, and on the Audio Reader Network at Kansas University. For more information, please visit us at www.blindcommunitythriftstore.com. Please stay tuned as our broadcast will start soon. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube channel now. At Blind Community Thrift Store on YouTube, and more info about this radio reading service, Navalins, and the Blind Community Thrift Store at www.blindcommunitythriftstore.com. The Blind Community Thrift Store radio reading service will begin shortly. We will be reading local news from around the Southwest Missouri area, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on YouTube, KSMU, and on the Audio Reader Network at Kansas University. For more information, please visit us at www.blindcommunitythriftstore.com. Please stay tuned as our broadcast will start soon. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube channel now. At Blind Community Thrift Store on YouTube, and more info about this radio reading service, Navalins, and the Blind Community Thrift Store at www.
Time is 10 a.m.
Good morning, and thank you for tuning into the Blind Community Thrift Store reading service. My name is Megan, and I'm here with my friend Matt. We invite you to listen to our broadcast both live and on demand. Our live sessions are available on the Blind Community Thrift Store YouTube channel, Monday to Friday, between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. each week. Additionally, you can access on-demand content through the Audio Reader Network. which offers a wide range of audio materials for the visually impaired community. To explore content from the Audio Reader Network, please visit www.reader.ku.edu. The site provides details about accessing content via Amazon Alexa, Audio Reader Network, mobile app, and information on receiving a radio to listen to the broadcast by KSMU Radio. All broadcasts are played over KSMU's subcarrier airwaves at 67 kilohertz on 91.1 from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday. Contact Audio Reader Network for information on receiving a pre-programmed radio. Alrighty, I hope everyone is staying warm, and today is National Plan for Vacation Day, which is perfect timing. The National Plan for Vacation Day was created by Project Time Off of the U.S. Travel Association, and it's a day for people to plan their vacation days for the upcoming year. And the holiday is geared to those with paid time off, as less than half of Americans with paid time off plan their vacations for the year ahead with much advance, and over half of people with paid time off don't use all their vacation days. In 2017, Americans had 662 million unused vacation days, which accounted for an estimated $236 billion lost to the U.S. economy. According to the creators of the day, more time off will be used if vacations are planned early in the year. Many don't plan vacations ahead, in part because they don't know what their personal work and children's schedules will be. And although many are hesitant to ask off so early in the year, bosses will be more likely to approve time off if it is done early. According to 2017 figures, almost half of Americans give less than 6 weeks of notice when asking for a week off of work. Only about a fifth give at least 3 months' notice. And National Plan for Vacation Day aims to change this. During the last decades of the 20th century, Americans took an average 20.3 vacation days a year. The number began dropping in 2000 to over 4 days being lost by 2014. The trend has still begun moving in a positive direction, with Americans on average taking 17.2 days of vacation in 2017. Still, there is much that needs to be done. This figure also must be looked through the lens of our modern and highly connected world, where work is often a 24/7 thing, often interrupting vacations. There are many benefits to taking vacations, and those who take them have a more fulfilled life overall. They help build bonds and relationships between family and friends and make workers more productive. Those who travel gain new perspectives, which spark creativity, which also benefits work environments. Vacations benefit mental health by lessening depression and stress. They benefit physical health as well, such as heart health. And one study showed that men who take frequent vacations were 32% less likely to die from heart disease. The Framingham Heart Study showed that men who didn't vacation for a few years had a 30% higher likelihood of having a heart attack than those who took a vacation. The study also said that women who took only one vacation over a 6-year time period were almost 8 times more likely to get coronary heart disease or have a heart attack compared to women who vacationed at least twice a year. So today is the perfect day to plan your vacation. Personally, I like going to national parks. If anyone has a lifelong disability, you can get an access pass and just go to a park ranger at any visitor center and you can get a lifetime access pass to national parks. Alrighty. My friend Matt is working behind the scenes, so I am here by myself today. So if you hear any pauses, it's me either taking a breath, drinking some water, or trying to find an article to read. I do have some pulled up right now, and this article comes from the Springfield News-Leader. It is titled, "New Homelessness Count Invites Unsheltered Residents to be Heard." And this article is written by Janice Reeser, and the reporter is assisted by AI. A campaign to help better understand unsheltered homelessness in Greene, Christian, and Webster counties is currently underway, according to a community announcement. The 2026 Everyone Counts campaign, led by Community Partnership of the Ozarks and sponsored by Healthy Blue, collects surveys from people experiencing homelessness to guide local program development and strengthen funding for housing and supportive services. It is part of a nationwide count mandated by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and provides critical data to help communities respond more effectively to local needs. Everyone Counts ensures that individuals experiencing homelessness are seen, heard, and represented in the data that shapes services and resources across our region. Emily Fessler, CPO's Continuum of Care Director, said in the announcement, "This is also a great opportunity for people to volunteer to make a real difference in our community." Who can participate? Anyone who is unsheltered on the night of January 28th, which is tomorrow, is encouraged to complete a survey, including individuals or households sleeping outside or in a tent, in a vehicle, in an abandoned building, or in a place not meant for human habitation, according to the announcement. Surveys will be conducted the evening of January 28th and throughout the day of January 29th at the following locations: New Day from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., the CU Transit Center from 8 a.m. to noon, the Schweitzer Brentwood Library from 8:30 to 9:30 a.m. and again from noon to 4 p.m., the Park Central Library from 3 to 5 p.m., the Library Center from 8 a.m. to noon, the Library Station from 10 to 11 a.m. and again from 1 to 2 p.m., the Veterans Coming Home Center from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., NAMI, the NAMI location from 9:30 to 11 a.m. and again at 1 to 4 p.m. Surveys also will be conducted at crisis cold weather shelters and through intensive street outreach. Each person who completes a survey will receive a free tote bag with essential items such as socks, snacks, a water bottle, and hand warmers. Supplies are donated by community partners including Victory Mission, Bureau Behavioral Health, Healthy Blue, and others. Volunteers are needed. Surveys are conducted by outreach teams from Bureau Behavioral Health and Victory Mission, along with trained community volunteers. Volunteers receive training and are paired with experienced surveyors. CPO is still looking for volunteers for the event. Those interested in volunteering can sign up by emailing efessler, and that is spelled EFESSLER, at cpoozarks.org, according to the announcement. This story was created by Janice Reeser, Jay Reeser at usatoday.co, with the assistance of AI. Thank you to those volunteers that are helping those in need right now. Alrighty. We have another article by Springfield News-Leader. It is titled, "Ozarks Milk Depot Sets New Donation Record with 2025 Contributions." And this article is by Dave DeMille. The Greater Ozarks Regional Mothers Milk Depot pumped out a record year in 2025, collecting a whopping 30,388 ounces of donated breast milk to help feed medically fragile infants across Missouri, according to a community announcement. The total surpassed the depot's previous high of 18,861 ounces set in 2021, reflecting growing support from families able to share extra frozen milk. Because each ounce can provide up to 3 feedings for infants in intensive care units, this year's total could supply more than 91,000 feedings, according to the announcement. We are incredibly grateful for our breast milk donors, many of whom are past recipients of donor milk and want to pay it forward, said Tawana Frazier, a nutritionist at Springfield Greene County Health. They are helping to save the lives of medically fragile infants in our local NICUs. The Milk Depot serves as a drop-off point for screen donors approved to contribute their stored milk. It opened in 2013 through a partnership between Springfield Greene County Health and the Greater Ozarks Regional Breastfeeding Coalition. Once collected, the milk is shipped to the Milk Bank, a nonprofit that processes, tests, pasteurizes, and distributes donor milk to NICUs, hospitals, and families statewide. Parents who want to donate can apply through the milkbank.org, where applicants undergo a required health screening before approval. Donors then schedule appointment-based drop-offs at the milk depot. The milk depot does not distribute milk directly. Families seeking donor milk can apply through the milk bank to receive processed and safely pasteurized milk for their infants. Alrighty. And our next article is from the Springfield Daily Citizen. It is titled, Efforts to Revive Cave Spring Memorial Church Gain Momentum with Community Support. Historic Cave Spring Memorial Church, Greene County's first Presbyterian house of worship, I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly, reopens its doors after decades. Alrighty, we have a photo of the church. Looks like it's 2 stories, but I'm sure it's just the inside, and it's got, I think, a bell up top as well. And it is captioned that the Cave Springs Memorial Church was built in the 1860s. Regular Sunday services ceased in the 1960s, but local supporters have organized second Sunday services through March to help introduce the building to the community. And the photo is by Caitlin McConnell. Cave Spring Memorial Church was built for the past, but the towering 2-story landmark has a place in the present. That fact is proven by the couple dozen folks who came to the church, said to be the first Presbyterian church in Greene County, in January for its first Sunday service in years. It was part of a series of second Sunday services organized by friends of the church to revive interest in the aging structure. Located about 5 miles northwest of Willard, it once was a centerpiece of life, but has largely faded from a memory since it closed in the 1960s. You feel the people who came before, said Angela Nigler-Rayburn, whose family and life have long been intertwined with the church. One of my favorite things to do is just feel the banisters because you get the energy. I do anyway, of all the people who have walked before you. I think it's pretty cool that it's been around for this long. It's not in the best shape, but it's still here. And now we have a photo of the historic site sign, labeling it as a Greene County site, Mount Zion Presbyterian Church of Cave Spring, organized. It looks like there's some writing that's kind of scratched off on this picture, but it says it is built in 1869. Alrighty. There's little left in Cave Spring today, save the cemetery, the remains of a long shuttered store, and a road sign that tells travelers where they are. But at one time, the church, unlike many Ozarks churches given its size and design, was a hub in the thriving Cave Spring community. It was organized in the 1830s, and according to the Springfield Daily News in 1969, it was the first Presbyterian church in Greene County. First meetings were held in a brush arbor, and later a log church house was erected, noted the Daily News. It burned and was replaced by the present frame 2-story structure, which is surmounted by a cupola. The stagecoach ultimately came through Cave Spring, Rayburn says, which led to a period of bustle for the community. That changed with the railroad, which was routed through Springfield, leading to Cave Spring's decline. Still, in 1894, 8 of its members left to help find the church. Years later, newspapers note that the congregation ultimately became an ancestor to Springfield's First and Calvary Presbyterian Church. Cave Springs' current building dates to the 1860s and was a hub for the community. School met on the lower level and the church was above. When a funeral was scheduled, legend says classes were canceled to avoid having to take the coffin up the stairs. And now we have a photo of inside the church, and there are some guests sitting inside, and some guests are being welcomed by the host, by the pastor, I believe. More than 20 attendees ultimately came to Cave Springs' January 2nd Sunday service. When I was a boy, I used to climb the stairs and slide down the banisters, Murray Young, now 97, told Ozarks Alive in 2018 of attending the church as a child. It was slick then. I kept the dust off of them. Time faded Cave Springs' vibrancy. The school consolidated with Willard, and by the 1960s, attendance at Cave Springs Church was dwindling too. In 1969, it merged with today's Willard Mount Zion Presbyterian Church. The former church eventually became known as Cave Spring Memorial Church. 2 decades later, there was discussion about moving the church as funding was no longer provided for its upkeep. It would seem that now is the time for all Presbyterians to come to the aid of their most hallowed exodus west of the Mississippi River. I apologize for all the words I am mispronouncing. Stated an editorial in the Springfield Daily News. It was likely written by Frank Farmer, a longtime Springfield journalist who hailed from Cave Spring. Those who do not should weep for shame if and when that old church comes tumbling down. It wasn't moved, although it made a Greene County historic site in 1983. Even though regular services weren't held there any longer, the landmark retained a place in locals' lives through special events like an annual egg roast, where eggs were boiled over an open fire before Easter, and services at Thanksgiving and Memorial Day. But in recent years, those events have ceased too. As fewer people have connections with the church, it's led connected friends to worry about the building's future. The church is in need of repair, and that takes support, felt financially as well as enthusiastically. This has led to a new idea, a trial of 3 monthly second Sunday services. The land and the things around it, they set in your soul, said Rayburn, who is also Young's granddaughter and one of the church's caretakers. I don't have words, but it's just, this is our ancestors who did this. And it's important that we keep it going for as long as we can and as best as we can. It was a cold Sunday morning in January when Rayburn and Amy Farmer Westerman, another Cave Spring descendant, opened the church a little before 11 a.m. Maybe it would be a small crowd, maybe no one would come. But then, one by one, they did come. More than 24 people settled into pews where so many others have sat before. At least one song still stamped, Mount Zion Presbyterian Church Rest in a Pew Too. One of those attendees was Chuck Midcap, who saw the church with new eyes. I've lived in this church for over 30 years, he said. This is the first time I've been in this church. And we have a photo of Amy Farmer Westerman leading the service. It includes a message, songs, and nods to the church's long history. The service wasn't led by a pastor or preacher. Instead, it was led by Westerman, Frank Farmer's granddaughter, who grew up locally and nurtured close ties. We are very glad you are here today, Westerman said from the pulpit. Our second Sunday programs are outreach to further that preservation and bring our community together. The descendants of the church's founders led the group through songs, prayer, and a message that reminded them of the need to be the light in the world. Heavenly Father, thank you for creating this opportunity to bring our friends and neighbors together today in the historic building where our ancestors worshiped and learned, she prayed. After the final prayer, Resterman and Rayburn invited congregants to go upstairs and see where the church used to meet. The attendance board is still on the wall, and 2 wood stoves remind us of earlier times. The rope to the bell hangs near the stairs, but visitors are warned not to ring it. It's one of the structural needs that must be addressed. but for the moment, there is joy. I am just ecstatic that we had 23 people today on a cold January morning for our first service with very little publicity, Westerman said. It's folks who live and are committed to the community, and they wanted to be here. I'm just so thrilled for that. I'm very hopeful that we've generated interest and people will continue to come and experience this wonderful building and the gathering that we started. Of course, there were folks without any ties, like the Hicks family. They came by a few weeks earlier when the church was open as part of a Christmas open house. We walked up here, said Janet Hicks, of how close they are, and this moment of learning more. There's a lot of history. And now we have a photo of the Hicks family, of Dad, Mom, and her two sons. Mom is hugging one of her sons as they listen to the service. The Hicks family lives near Cave Spring Memorial Church, and after visiting and during a Christmas open house, they decided to return during its second Sunday service. Another was Midcap. Was he glad he came? Oh, yes, he said, I'll be back. Maybe they will, and others will too. Maybe things will work out differently. Yet in this moment, the church once again fulfilled its purpose. It brought people together. I feel this church come alive when people are here, Rayburn said, referring to the structure as she. Do buildings have human characteristics? I don't know, but that's how I feel. It's so good to see the church welcoming people again in whatever capacity she does. Second Sunday services are scheduled at 11 a.m. on February 8th and March 8th. For more information, connect with Cave Spring Memorial Church on Facebook. This article was written by Caitlin McConnell. She is the founder of Ozarks Alive, a cultural preservation project through which she has documented the region's people, places, and defining features since 2015. That was a very nice story. Alrighty. Let's see. Now I have an article from the Springfield Business Journal, and it's a short story, but it's titled Missouri Lottery Fraud Scheme Sends Mount Vernon Woman to Prison. A Mount Vernon woman has been sentenced to 23 months in prison for defrauding the Missouri Lottery. Amy Young, aged 42, was sentenced after pleading guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud, according to a news release from the office of R. Matthew Price, U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Missouri. Young and co-conspirators used fraudulent credit cards and credit card numbers to buy Missouri lottery tickets at a Joplin gas station, law enforcement officials say. In July and August of 2022, Young and her co-conspirators made roughly $62,000 and $83,000 to be correct, in fraudulent transactions and collected $54,248 in cash prizes, according to the release. Prosecuted by Assistant U.S. Attorney Patrick Carney, the case was investigated by the FBI and the Joplin Police Department. Lesson learned. Alrighty. I'm trying to find another article. This one is from the Springfield News-Leader. It is titled, In Missouri and Elsewhere, Who's Watching Out for Pets? It is by Daniel Patton of the Springfield News-Leader. Many of us worry when we leave animals home alone. The breeders who supply this nation's pet trade, including a Polk County woman, on the other hand, routinely leave hundreds of animals with no responsible adult to watch over them. Their indifference risks animals' welfare and underscores why caring people adopt companions instead of buying them. Suppliers of some animals who end up in pet stores are expected, by law, to allow federal officials to visit their operations. But over 12 months, ending in late November, officials arriving at these animal factories and similar facilities found no responsible adult on site 288 times. Between November 2023 and November 2024, no one was available an outstanding 318 times. Now, these figures don't indicate that Uncle Sam is being difficult. The feds don't even attempt inspections when licenses are sick or tied up with medical appointments, family emergencies, or religious holidays. And inspections are only attempted when a business is open to the public or if it's private during its 12 weekly hours of optimal inspection time. We now have a photo of a dog being cared for at an emergency shelter. He's a cute little fluffy puppy, and he was just rescued from an Iowa breeder who was ordered by a U.S. District Court judge to surrender his dogs after the USDA said he had violated the Animal Welfare Act more than 100 times. Officials don't even require that the animal's owner be present, just someone at least 18 years old. Breeders are also given a generous grace period if they're not present. Inspectors must make every effort to contact them and then wait 30 minutes. If a breeder simply calls back, the feds will wait another hour for someone to get back to the animals. And yet, more than once every business day, on average, breeders and their ilk can't be bothered to have a responsible adult on site for animals they intend to sell you. Take, for example, that Polk County dog breeding operation near Bolivar. In July, when the feds stopped by, the operator wasn't home or reachable by phone. When officials were able to access the property in August, they found 88 dogs there, including Helena, a husky who was limping on 2 of her legs. The breeder knew Helena had been limping and admitted she hadn't been examined by a vet. In other words, the one person somehow responsible for nearly 90 dogs, at least one of whom evidently needed veterinary care, was missing in action in July. Or consider a chinchilla mill near Toledo, Ohio. In September, the feds found that a chinchilla's left eye was crusted shut. He had a mass under his jaw. Oh, this is hard to read. The heart on his hindquarters was stained yellow. The breeder hadn't even noticed his condition, let alone provided him with veterinary care. Inspectors also noted a strong odor of ammonia where the chinchillas were caged, which irritated their eyes, and surely the animals. But 12 days later, when officials followed up, no one was around. Fast forward to November 17th, when, you guessed it, a responsible adult was not available. We now have another photo of staff from the Humane Society of the United States, now called Humane World for Animals, assisting with the rescue of dozens of dogs and puppies from a rural puppy mill in Oklahoma in 2024. It looks like the 2 caregivers in the photo are trying to feed the dogs that have been malnourished. So who was caring for the 364 or so chinchillas there? And if someone were on site and found an animal in need of emergency care, could they even reach the breeder, who apparently ignored calls twice in a few weeks? Similar cases abound. In June, the government was told that a Lancaster County, Pennsylvania breeder was out of town for a few days. Weeks later, the feds returned to find an astonishing 307 dogs there. 3 hours northwest in Clinton County, Pennsylvania, a government vet found one man tending to 893 guinea pigs who had no responsible individual available to them just weeks earlier. Such disregard is at odds with the view of those of us who count animals as family members. One 2023 survey found that leaving animals at home is a significant source of stress for guardians. More than 40% of respondents arrange for friends and family to check on animals when leaving for work, and more than 30% use cameras to watch how their animals are doing. One of guardians' top concerns is that their animals will have a health issue or an emergency in their absence. But in a country where shelters are bursting at the seams with individuals in need of homes, those churning out animals for cash don't care about any of that, judging by federal inspections. And that's just one more reason why anyone who cares about animals should adopt, never buy them. And this article was written by Daniel Payton. All right. All right, our next article. All right. Alrighty, this one is by Springfield Daily Citizen. It is titled John Chiles, entrepreneur and teacher running for House District 135 seat as a Democrat. This article is written by Jack McGee. State Representative Betsy Fogel, who currently represents the Northeast Springfield District, is running for Springfield State Senate seat. All right, we have a photo of John Chiles, and he is running for House District 135 as a Democrat. He is smiling at the camera. He's wearing a dark blue blazer with a light blue button-up shirt, and he has dark rimmed glasses, and he's taking this photo outside in front of a tree. Definitely in the spring or fall because there's no snow in the background. It's nice and green. John Chiles, a college instructor and entrepreneur with a focus on sustainability, is running for House District 135 as a Democrat. House District 135, which encompasses Northeast Springfield, is currently represented by State Representative Betsy Fogel. Rather than run for a fourth and final term, Fogel, a Democrat, is running for Springfield State Senate seat, leaving the House District open. Republican Michael Hasty, who unsuccessfully challenged Fogel in 2024, is once again running for the House District 135 seat. While Chiles has previously considered running for office, he was not planning to run for state representative this year until Fogel approached him about vying to succeed her. Chiles has volunteered in campaigns for Fogel, State Representative Stephanie Hine, and former candidate and State Representative Crystal Quaid, and former U.S. Senate candidate Lucas Kuntz. I don't think I pronounced that correctly. Chiles also grew up around politics with his uncle Dan Chiles, having served on Springfield City Council as Mayor Pro Tem. When Betsy asked me, I was really honored to be asked, and thought about it quite a bit, and talked to people, and talked to her, and decided this was the right thing for me to do, Chiles told the Springfield Daily Citizen. Speaking with the Daily Citizen, Fogel expressed support for Chiles' candidacy, noting that the House District has become very important to her over the past 6 years. I'm excited that John decided to jump into the race and look forward to seeing kind of how the campaign unfolds over the next 10 months, Fogel said. A Springfield native, Chiles attended Glendale High School and graduated from Missouri State University with a bachelor's degree in biology and mathematics before moving to the West Coast to learn more about renewable energy. While out west, Chiles earned a Master of Business Administration from Presidio Graduate School in Seattle, which has since merged with the University of Redlands. He also held a variety of jobs, working as a hydroelectric power plant, a green builder, and a clean tech angel investment firm. In 2018, he moved back to Springfield to start the Ozarks Renewal LLC with his dad, Mike. Originally intended to oversee the construction of greenhouses powered by waste heat from the landfill and a data center, the organization has since evolved into a consulting firm through which the father-son duo can help communities across the country build similar projects. In a lot of ways, the work that we did with Ozarks Renewal is very similar to a campaign where you go out and you talk to people and understand what they need and how you can help serve the community, he said. A former carpenter, Chili's is the founder of Ember Sound, a Springfield-based company that creates natural acoustic phone speakers made from Ozarks hardwoods. Chili's also works part-time for his alma mater, teacher impact investing and venture capital in the University of Redlands Presidio Center. He primarily teaches online but flies out west every month or so to deliver a lecture in person. Outside of his work, Chili's is a former board member of the Springfield Community Gardens and long-time volunteer of YBs, a group that supports YMCA Camp Wakanda. Chili's said his campaign will focus on 3 main issues: healthcare, public education, and supporting small businesses. Regarding healthcare, Chili's said that the state has to do better, recognizing that some families have to choose between healthcare and paying rent or buying groceries. As for education, he emphasized the importance of having a state legislator who advocates for Springfield's public educational institutions and ensures they get the funding they deserve. If we're not doing that, what are we doing? Chili said. After nearly 10 years on the West Coast, Chili said he was surprised to learn that the rate of entrepreneurship in Springfield was higher than that of Seattle, which he said speaks to the resourcefulness of our community and an ability to create smart, resourceful solutions to problems. As an entrepreneur, I'm a very pro-business person, and I think part of the role of government is making it easier for people to create small businesses and solve the problems of the world using business, Chili said, and I think Springfield could be a leader of that. And to the extent that the government can help facilitate that, or at least get out of the way. Former Springfield Mayor Jim O'Neill is serving as Chili's campaign treasurer. While Chili's has a campaign finance committee established, he has not yet filed a report with the Missouri Ethics Commission. Candidate filing for the August 2026 primary election opens on February 24th and closes on March 31st. The general election will take place on November 3rd, 2026. All right, this article was written by Jack McGee. Jack McGee is the government affairs reporter at the Springfield Daily Citizen. He previously covered politics and business for the Daily Citizen, and he's an MSU graduate with a Bachelor of Science degree in journalism and a minor political science. All right. Okay, so our next article is coming from Springfield News-Leader, and it is titled, Kirby Smart Marches to Own Drumbeat. Is that still a Georgia victory tune? And this is about college football. Let me rewind the clock for you to a fall Saturday in 2022. After Georgia busted out the whooping stick on Tennessee, Coach Kirby Smart puffed out his chest and touted his team despite signing no transfers in the previous offseason. A bunch of the kids that love this place, Smart said then of his 2022 Bulldogs. They loved winning too, and they were darn good at it. Georgia captured a second straight national championship with a roster forged by Smart's excellent recruiting classes, which he so expertly developed into NFL talent. Smart's back-to-back championship teams formed a firewall against transfer free agency, changing the formula to greatness. Smart won national titles, much like Nick Saban had done at Alabama. He signed a bevy of blue-chip recruits. He retained them, he developed them, he ruled. Then the firewall fractured. In the years since Smart's second title, the game's changed. How could you dispute that after Indiana just won the national championship? Transfers from schools like California, Maryland, and James Madison fueled the Hoosiers' success. You can call it a fluke or you can jump in on the transfer sweepstakes. Schools like Ohio State and Texas aren't sitting on their hands. A pair of traditional recruiting powers, the Buckeyes and Longhorns, also took big swings this month in the transfer market. Ryan Day and Steve Sarkisian Each compiled their biggest transfer class ever. Clearly, they're not treating Indiana's success as a fluke. And off in the corner, marching to his own drumbeat, stands Smart. The Georgia coach built his 2026 roster much as he's always done. He's lambasted a culture where, as he puts it, many athletes want college football's paycheck without its physicality. Never mind that, the Hoosiers, including their transfers, looked mighty physical this past season while showcasing a defense superior to Georgia's. Led by Indiana, the Big Ten supplanted the SEC as the bully on the block. And never mind that, Smart last won a college football playoff game in the 2022 season. Georgia allowed 39 points in a playoff loss to a Mississippi team built from the portal. What's this I hear about physicality? Smart signs more transfers than he once did, but he's nonetheless still using the portal much more sparingly than most of his peers. Smart's focus remains on signing, retaining, and developing top recruiting classes filled with 4- and 5-star teenagers. He's a throwback to what's quickly become a bygone era. You cannot call this a fool's errand because Smart is no fool. He remains a preeminent coach of a premier program. Even without a playoff, the Bulldogs went 26-6 the past 3 seasons. They're the 2-time defending SEC champions. A vast majority of coaches would trade their roster for Smart's. This 2026 season will be a litmus test of whether Smart's methods still can produce a team that's better than good, that's the best in the nation. It's time for Georgia to start collecting dividends from a 2024 recruiting class that ranked number 1 nationally. That year, Smart signed more than 10% of the nation's top 100 prospects. He retained most of them, too. Georgia's 2026 roster includes 10 players who were top 100 prospects in the 2024 class. That's the old Saban blueprint at work. It's up to Smart to prove that formula still produces national championships. Georgia's 2024 recruiting haul included star running back Nate Frazier. Mostly, though, the fingerprints of that recruiting class will be found next season within a Georgia defense that slipped from the nation's elite. Those 2024 recruits now will be third-year players. Shouldn't that be a payoff point? There's a track record for it. Smart's 2021 national championship team featured defensive stars like Nolan Smith, Trevon Walker, Nakobe Dean, and Lewis Sign. They were third-year players who'd signed as blue chippers among a Bollywood 2019 recruiting class that ranked second nationally only to Alabama's class. Smart's 2024 class ranked as being even better than his 2019 class. Months ago, Smart won his first national championship at Georgia. He took a not-so-subtle jab at Dan Mullen after the Bulldogs throttled Florida. There's no coach out there who can out-coach recruiting. At that time, nobody was out-recruiting Smart. Georgia remains a recruiting juggernaut, and yet Indiana owns the big trophy, while the SEC has not sent a team to the national championship game in any of the past 3 seasons. Indiana won with a bunch of guys who came out of high school as 3 or 2 or even 0-star recruits before flourishing with the Hoosiers. I guess Kurt Signetti knows how to outcoach and outdevelop recruiting rankings. 4 years ago, Smart took pride in winning without transfers after signing the SEC's smallest transfer haul. He's doubling down on his method. For that to pay off, the coveted prospects from Georgia's 2024 recruiting class must play up their billing, lest we start to wonder whether Smart has fallen behind the times. And this article was written by Blake Topmeyer. I'm sure you can tell I don't know anything about sports. All right, let me find another article. And let me take a sip of water. Now is a good time for everyone to take a sip of water. We got to stay hydrated. All right. This next article is by Springfield News-Leader. And it is titled, Judge Weighs Whether to Allow April Vote on Missouri Property Tax Caps. This article is written by Rudy Keller of the Missouri Independent. While the Kansas City Chiefs are leaving Missouri and won't use the incentives lawmakers created for them last summer, the question of whether other tax credits and property tax caps included in the legislation will be used by anyone remains undecided. Cole County Circuit Judge Christopher Limbaugh, after a hearing on Wednesday, January 21st, promised he would rule by February 10th on whether to issue a preliminary injunction to block elections on property tax caps that must be held in April in 97 counties. A second hearing in the case, originally filed by 2 taxpayers, 6 school districts, and a fire district, will be held next week as attorneys for the plaintiffs seek a summary judgment in their favor. And in a January 16th decision, certain to be appealed, Limbaugh denied standing the right to sue and dismissed a case brought by 2 lawmakers and a conservative activist arguing the wide-ranging legislation violated procedural rules for passing bills. And we now have a photo of the Cole County Courthouse in Jefferson City. It looks like it's 2 stories with a basement, possibly 3 stories. And it looks like there's a church in the background. The bill approved by lawmakers in a June special session offered up to $1.5 billion in incentives to keep the Kansas City Chiefs and Royals in Missouri. It also expanded a program of tax credits as an incentive for major amateur sports competitions, offered tax credits for disaster relief, and set the property tax caps in 97 of the state's 114 counties. In 75 counties, voter approval would limit future increases in tax bills to 5% or the rate of inflation, whichever is greater. For 22 counties, voter approval would mean individual property tax bills could not increase. The tax base would be reset when a property changes hands. The caps allow tax bills to increase when a new or increased tax is approved by voters. February 10th is a key date because that is when April ballots must be certified by local election authorities. 27 counties joined the lawsuit after it was filed, arguing that the cost of the election is an unfunded mandate that violates the Missouri Constitution. Attorney Jim Layton, who represents several of the original plaintiffs, said Limbaugh must decide whether the property tax caps are improperly passed special laws or violate constitutional provisions requiring uniformity in taxation and equal rights. Lawmakers opted their counties into the legislation during a late-night floor session, deciding what level of relief they wanted for their area. Many of the state's largest counties were excluded, leaving Boone, Greene, Jackson, St. Louis County, and the city of St. Louis out of the law. There's no rational basis for the lines that it drew, or for designating some counties, particular counties, as 0% or 5%, or unaffected counties, Layton said in an interview with The Independent. The state is defending the law by saying it will provide cover to local assessors who have been reluctant to bring property values up to the current market because of its impact on tax bills, Layton said. Neither the original plaintiffs nor the intervening counties challenging the tax caps are asking Limbaugh to throw out the entire law. That was the goal of the lawsuit that was dismissed January 16th, filed by State Senator Mike Moon, a Republican from Ash Grove, and State Representative Bryant Wolfen, a Republican from St. Genevieve, and Ron Calzone, a conservative activist who has challenged several laws for violating procedural rules in the Missouri Constitution. Moon and Wolfen claim that they have legislative standing to challenge the law, but this court is unaware of any Missouri statute or case law conferring such standing upon petitioners Moon and Wolfen, Limbaugh wrote. Calzone, who claimed standing as a taxpayer who would be damaged by having public funds spent, failed in that argument, Limbaugh wrote. Tax credits to promote major amateur sporting events are not a direct expenditure to be made by the state, and payments for bonds on stadiums are subject to appropriation, which means they are not automatic. There is no direct expenditure of funds generated through taxation that could confer tax-paying standing, Limbo wrote. Calzone, in an interview, said Limbo made a mistake because the tax credits for amateur sporting events are refundable, meaning the state will write a check if the credits exceed what the taxpayer owes the state. The ruling also cited an incorrect version of the law on amateur sporting event tax credits, he said. The section cited is the one that existed, with lower credit amounts before the special session law was enacted. The options for the plaintiffs are to ask Limbo to reconsider based on what they believe are errors in the decision or take the case to higher courts on appeal, Calzone said. That is something we are still trying to determine, he said. But absolutely, one way or another, we will end up in the Missouri Supreme Court. And this story was first published on MissouriIndependent.com. All right, we're going to take another H2O break. All right, and we're back to it. All right, here is something fun. Today is also Thomas Crapper Day. Where's the crapper? You've likely said or heard someone say. But did you know that you weren't just using a slang word for excrement, but were actually mentioning someone's name? Although Thomas Crapper did not invent the toilet, that is usually credited to John Harrington in 1596, he did help perfect and popularize it. We celebrate him today on the anniversary of his death, which happened in 1910. Born in Thorne, South Yorkshire, England, in 1836, Crapper founded the Thomas Crapper & Co. in 1866 in London. He patented and manufactured sanitary appliances. Among his patents are 4 for drain improvements, 3 for water closets, 1 for pipe joints, and 1 for manhole covers. His plumbing products were used by the British royal family, and his manhole covers were used at the Westminster Abbey. He is also associated with an invention that allowed a toilet to flush when it was only half full, but this was not actually his invention. It belonged to Albert Gibbons. Crapper was the first to make bathroom fixture showrooms and talked proudly about toilets at a time when not many did. So, how did the word crapper become a common slang term for the toilet? American soldiers in Europe during World War I saw the word crapper emblazoned on toilets and thought it was pretty funny that crap was going in them, so they started calling them that. As for crap itself, it appears to be a form of the Middle Dutch word crappe, which means anything cut off or separated. The more you know, right? Alrighty. Our next article is going to be from 417 Mag. It looks like they recently went to the Himalayan Grill and Bar, and they reviewed it. And it's bringing in flavors of Nepal's high altitudes down to the Ozarks. And we have a photo of all the food that they offer. It looks like some dumplings, maybe chicken, some shrimp, a salad. Oh, it looks so very good. Alrighty. Republic is a rapidly growing town, and its local food scene is keeping pace. The new food and beverage concepts popping up here are so unique that they are drawing visitors from all over southwest Missouri. And the Himalayan Grill and Bar is no exception. Here you'll find a blend of authentic Nepalese, Indo-Chinese, and Indian cuisine prepared by chef Bishnu Chaudhary, who owns and runs the restaurant alongside Gautam Buddha Maharjan and Prem Shrashla. I am so sorry for mispronouncing those. Together, these Nepal natives are bringing the flavors of their home country to our little corner of the Ozarks. I've had Indo-Chinese and Indian cuisine before, so I really wanted to find something that represented more of the Nepalese flavors. The menu made this a super easy feat, as the first two sections are labeled Most Iconic Nepali Appetizers and Most Iconic Nepali Cuisine. I kicked off my meal with the chat pate, which is popular street food in Nepal. Think of this as a spicy snack mix with a medley of chopped noodles, puffed rice, and peas, all dried. It is crunchy, tangy, and spicy, and my mouth is watering right now just thinking about it. And if it's this picture of what I see below, it does look mighty good. My palate was awake and ready for my second course, the Newari Kaja set. And we have a photo of that meal, the chat pate, I believe, and a picture of the two owners in front of, it looks like maybe they have a bar or their front counter. And they are smiling. They look very happy and excited to be here. This meal, the Newari Kaja set, offers a sampling of multiple native-style foods served together on a triangular platter. The Himalayans' take on this dish featured bara, which is a savory pancake made with lentils that they topped off with a fried egg. It, along with the chayora, which is beaten rice, offered a nice respite amid the spicier components like the potatoes. The chicken choila was my favorite addition, as it was very garlic forward. I nearly doubled the garlic in any recipe. My mother would love this place then. Before I ordered, my server asked me what spice level I wanted, and I went with medium. I found it was the perfect level to offer a fiery kick while still letting the other flavors come through. However, I was glad I ordered a glass of the sweet lassi to go with my meal, which is a soothing salted yogurt drink with just a slight hint of rose water. I would suggest ordering the mango version if you want one that offers a stronger, brighter flavor. On my next visit, I really want to try the momo, which are Nepal's take on steamed dumplings. The sea momo style is their best seller, and it's steamed and tossed in a sweet and spicy chili sauce. One order includes 10, so I will be bringing a friend to help split. And on a related note, the portion sizes here are very generous, so I had enough leftovers for lunch the next day. My husband Chandler is normally my date for these reviews, but on this occasion, my 10-month-old daughter Florence was along for the ride. As far as her favorites, she couldn't get enough of the naan or the bara. I left the experience feeling so grateful. Even if I never made it to Nepal with my daughter, I think it's so wonderful to live in a region where we can enjoy global flavors like this together on an ordinary evening. All right, so check that place out if you guys ever get to it. All right. We are currently broadcasting live from the Blind Community Thrift Store situated at 2713 North Kansas Expressway in Springfield, Missouri. For additional information about our store, please visit our official website at www.blindcommunitythriftstore.com. To explore more of our video content, including movie reviews with Matt and Meredith, adaptive technology training videos, and other informative material, please visit our YouTube channel by searching for Blind Community Thrift Store. Our organization is dedicated to supporting the blind community through various initiatives, and our online platforms serve as valuable resources for community engagement and education. Alrighty, let's take another H2O break. All right, thank you all for drinking water with me. All right. All right, we have the article by the Springfield News-Leader, and it is titled, Who's Performing at Springfield's National Route 66 Centennial Kickoff? This is going to be a very exciting event for Springfield, and I'm looking forward to it. Springfield, known as the birthplace of Route 66, is set to host the start of a national celebration of the Mother Road Centennial. Over the course of 4 days, the Queen City will set the stage with several events, including a concert hosted by actor John Goodman. And I believe he's from Springfield, or went to school here. On Thursday, April 30th, Springfield, alongside the rest of the nation, will celebrate 100 years since the telegram proposing the name U.S. Route 66 was sent from Springfield to federal highway officials. This 100-year anniversary will include a kickoff concert, live broadcast of the Today Show, and a plethora of other events this spring. All right, we have a photo of classic cars lining St. Louis Street in downtown Springfield during the birthplace of Route 66 Festival during 2023, which was held on Friday, August 11th, 2023. It looks like we got a few Chevys. I can't tell what vehicles they are. My dad would not be happy with me not knowing what they are. But they are a bunch of old classic cars, very beautiful paint jobs on them. We have a turquoise hot rod, behind that a red hot rod, and behind that one a dark blue hot rod. Vroom vroom. And who's performing at the Route 66 Centennial Kickoff Concert? The centerpiece of the Centennial celebration will be the kickoff concert set to take place at the Great Southern Bank Arena on April 30th from 5 to 11 p.m. The concert will be hosted by actor John Goodman and Springfield Councilwoman Callie Carroll with a lineup of 6 musical artists to celebrate music, stories, and shared experiences inspired by the Mother Road. A news release from the Missouri Route 66 Centennial Commission announced. And it looks like we have a photo of John Goodman at Missouri State University on October 30th, 2022. Goodman attended Missouri State University, at the time Southwest Missouri State University, and is known for his roles in Roseanne, The Big Lebowski, and Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, and as the voice behind Sully in Monsters, Inc. He has continued to play an active role as an MSU alum, establishing the Professional Performance Award Scholarship and chairing the university's major Onward Upward fundraising campaign, according to the release. And here's the lineup for the concert. We have Little Big Town, one of country music's enduring and celebrated groups. Little Big Town has delivered hits including Boondocks, Pontoon, and Day Drinking. Chris Jansen, blending traditional country, southern rock, and modern Americana. The multi-platinum selling singer-songwriter is known for his hits such as Done and Buy Me a Boat. We also will be having Gary LeVox of Rascal Flatts. He's the lead vocalist of Rascal Flatts. His voice helped define a generation of country pop music, and with more than 23.4 million albums sold, Rascal Flatts is known for songs like its cover of Life is a Highway and Bless the Broken Road. Gretchen Wilson will also be here, known for her unapologetic authenticity and blue-collar storytelling. Wilson rose to prominence with her Grammy-winning anthem, Redneck Woman. The Ozark Mountain Daredevils, I'm super excited about them. The celebrated band formed in Springfield is one of the best influential roots rock bands to emerge from the Midwest, blending country rock, folk, and blues. And the Haygoods, known for their high-energy live shows and innovative instrumentation. This Branson family-based group combines tight harmonies, genre-spanning music, and inventive staging that resonates with audiences of all ages. Tickets for the concert go on sale this Friday at 10 a.m. at www.greatsouthernbankarena.com, and those tickets start at $59. Other events set for the Centennial celebration. NBC's Today Show will originate its third hour live from Springfield at 8 a.m. April 30th, according to the release. Host Al Roker, Dylan Dreyer, and Craig Melvin will showcase the Queen City role in American transportation history, and I really hope I can meet Al Roker. I've grown up watching him since I was a kid, telling me about the weather, so it'll be a dream come true if I can meet him. And the broadcast will feature live interviews, sorry, that was a side note, historical storytelling, and scenes from the kickoff event. A formal dedication ceremony of the Birthplace Plaza in downtown Springfield will take place at 4 p.m. April 30th. This will mark the precise time and location at the intersection of Jefferson Avenue and St. Louis Street, where the telegram proposing the name of Route 66 was sent out. The Queen's Gate sculpture, a new public art landmark created to honor the cultural, artistic, and historical significance of Route 66, will be unveiled and dedicated at the intersection of St. Louis Street and Glenstone Avenue on May 1st at 11 a.m. The sculpture will serve as a symbolic gateway to Springfield's Route 66 corridor. And it looks like they have a mock-up drawing, a rendering of the design proposed for a gateway for the Route 66 monument to be installed on St. Louis Street for the Mother Road Centennial Celebration. This mock-up rendering was provided by the City of Springfield, and it looks like a giant sun that you can stand inside of. And I want to say it might be stained glass. It looks like it's stained glass. It's a round portal, but it's also shaped like a sun. It looks big enough for a photo op, so it looks very beautiful. I can't wait to see it. More than 100 classic, vintage, and iconic automobiles will travel through Springfield streets in the Celebration America on Route 66 parade at 6 p.m. on May 1st. The long-awaited restorations of the Jefferson Avenue footbridge will be the backdrop for the Red, White, and Bridge Bash from 6 to 9 p.m. May 1st, featuring live music and family-friendly entertainment. The historical bridge on Commercial Street will stand as a symbol of city's industrial past and create a space where history, music, and community converge. The official lighting of the footbridge, accompanied by a choreographed light, sound, and drone show over Commercial Street, will take place at 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. That, I bet, will be really cool. The Red, White, and Bridge Bash will continue into May 2nd, taking place 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Stars and Stripes on Route 66 reception will take place at 7 p.m. at the Savoy Ballroom. The event will include drinks and appetizers from Commercial Street restaurants. Tickets are $66 and go on sale this Friday. Springfield's annual Arts Fest on Walnut Street will be particularly Route 66 themed this year, celebrating creativity inspired by the Mother Road. The festival will take place on Saturday, May 2nd and Sunday, May 3rd from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. To explore the road's historical significance and enduring appeal, Ozarks Public Television will present a special free public screening of a Route 66 documentary on May 2nd at 3 to 5 p.m. at the historic Fox Theater. The 100th anniversary celebration will conclude with the National Telegraph Ball, an evening event at the Shrine Mosque. The Saturday night ball will combine live entertainment by the Angel City Swing Orchestra, dining, and period-inspired flair while raising support for Route 66 awareness and preservation initiatives. The black tie event general admission tickets are set at $500, and those will go on sale this Friday as well. For more information on the Centennial, visit www.route66kickoff.com. Springfield was selected as the host city for the national celebration out of a national pool of applicants last year. This kickoff celebration is more than a look back. It's a launch point for the next century of Route 66, said Cora Scott, City of Springfield's chief spokesperson and chair of the Missouri Route 66 Centennial Commission, in the release. Missouri has invested years of planning, collaboration, and preservation to ensure the centennial reflects the road's historic importance and its ongoing impact. That's super exciting for Springfield. So if you don't live in Springfield, I would advise now getting your hotels booked because those will be sold out, I bet. All right. Let me find another article while we all take a break for some water. Alrighty. Our next article is by Springfield News-Leader. It's a USA Today article, but I find it a bit interesting. It is titled, Doomsday Clock 2026 Update Says Apocalypse is Closer Than Ever. The human race is at its closest point yet to destroying itself, according to a reset of the ominous but symbolic doomsday clock. And this article is by Doyle Rice of USA Today. Humanity continues to move closer to catastrophe, scientists said Tuesday, January 27th. That must have happened early this morning. The human race is at its closest point yet to destroying itself, according to the rest of the ominous but symbolic doomsday clock. The metaphorical clock now stands at 85 seconds to midnight after advancing 4 seconds since last year's reset. The clock is now the closest to midnight since its introduction in 1947. It is updated every year by the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist, which organizes the assessment of how close we are to a self-inflicted end of humanity. Citing a worldwide failure of leadership, the Bulletin of the Atomic Science and Security Board set the doomsday clock at 85 seconds to midnight, the closest it has ever been to catastrophe, the bulletin said in a statement. The doomsday clock's message cannot be clearer, Alexandra Bell, president and CEO, Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist said. Catastrophic risks are on the rise, cooperation is on the decline, and we are running out of time. Change is both necessary and possible, but the global community must demand swift action from their leaders. According to the bulletin, our current trajectory is unsustainable. National leaders, particularly those in the United States, Russia, and China, must take the lead in finding a path away from the brink. Citizens must insist they do so. What is the doomsday clock? The doomsday clock is a metaphor for how close humanity is to self-annihilation, and it serves as a call to action to find solutions to the world's most urgent, human-made, existential threats to move the hands of the clock away from midnight, according to the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist. And we now have a photo. It looks like a gallery of photo. It's pictures of extreme weather conditions like drought, wildfire, floodings. Oops, I accidentally clicked the picture. My apologies, I just lost my article. There it is. My apologies, folks. What time is it on the doomsday clock? The iconic clock is now at 85 seconds to midnight, the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist announced January 27th via an online news conference from Washington, D.C. What did the 2025 doomsday clock tell us? The clock was moved 4 seconds closer than it was a year ago, when it was set to 89 seconds to midnight. Last year, the clock was moved ahead, because the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist deemed the world less safe and less stable than it was a year earlier, Dan Hulse, chair of the Bulletin's Science and Security Board, told USA Today. Arms control treaties are in tatters, and there are active conflicts involving nuclear powers, he said, and misinformation, disinformation, and conspiracies are a threat multiplier. People have been predicting the end of the world probably since its dawning. Most recently, the world was supposed to have ended in September 2025. The doomsday clock is different in that it is meant to be purely symbolic and does not offer a specific prediction of end times, but rather an assessment of the global dangers by some of the world's leading scientists. The Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist was founded by University of Chicago scientists who had helped develop the first nuclear weapons for the Manhattan Project. How does the doomsday clock work? Each year, the members of the Science and Security Board are asked 2 questions. Is humanity safer or at greater risk this year than last year? And is humanity safer or at greater risk compared with the 79 years the clock has been set? Their answers set the clock for the coming year. Why was the clock moved closer to midnight? The dangerous trends in nuclear risk, climate change, disruptive technologies like AI, and biosecurity are accompanied by another frightening development: the rise of nationalistic autocracies and countries around the world, said Daniel Hulse, professor of the University of Chicago and Science and Security Board Chair, Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists, in a statement. Our greatest challenges require international trust and cooperation, and a world splintering into us versus them will leave all of humanity more vulnerable. According to the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist, a year ago, we warned that the world was close to global disaster and that any delay in reversing course increased the probability of catastrophe. Rather than heed this warning, the Bulletin said that Russia, China, and the U.S. and other major countries have instead become increasingly aggressive, adversarial, and nationalistic. Hard-won global understandings are collapsing, accelerating a winner-takes-all great power competition and undermining the international cooperation critical to reducing the risk of nuclear war, climate change, and the misuse of biotechnology, the potential threat of artificial intelligence, and other apocalyptic dangers. Far too many leaders have grown complacent and indifferent, in many cases adopting rhetoric and policies that accelerate rather than mitigate these risks. We now have a photo of the doomsday clock. It's not as crazy as it sounds. It's just a white block with half a clock on it, and it's pointed 85 seconds to midnight. So it's not the full clock, it's just that upper left-hand corner, the 9 to 12 part. And how did the doomsday clock start? In 1945, on the anniversary of the bombing of Pearl Harbor, scientists who had worked on the Manhattan Project, which built the world's first atomic bombs, began publishing a newsletter called the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists. 2 years later, as those same scientists contemplated a world in which 2 atomic weapons had been used in Japan, they gathered to discuss the threat to humanity posed by nuclear war. Martha Langsdorff, an artist and the wife of Manhattan Project physicist Alexander Langsdorff Jr., came up with the idea of a clock showing just how close things were. They called it the doomsday clock. And what can be done? Even as the hands of the doomsday clock move closer to midnight, many actions could pull humanity back from the brink, the bulletin said. The actions include: the United States and Russia can resume dialogue without limiting their nuclear arsenals. All nuclear-armed states can avoid destabilizing investments in missile defense and observe the existing moratorium on explosive nuclear testing. 2, through both multilateral agreements and national regulations, the international community can take all feasible steps to prevent the creation of mere life and cooperate on meaningful measures to reduce the prospect that AI be used to create biological threats. The United States Congress can repudiate, I've never heard this word, repudiate, President Trump's war on renewable energy, instead of providing incentives and investments that will enable rapid reduction in fossil fuel use. And lastly, the United States, Russia, and China can engage in bilateral and multilateral dialogue on meaningful guidelines regarding the incorporation of AI in their militaries, particularly in nuclear command and control systems. All right. I'm sure we all thought the world was ending when this snowstorm came through. And I hope everyone is okay and everyone is staying warm and is able to have access to clean water. All right. H2O break time. Alrighty. All right, I'm trying to find an article, a good article for you all. All right, I found one for y'all. This one is by Springfield Daily Citizen. It is titled, Longtime Nixon Superintendent Battles Parkinson's with the Love of His Wife and Sons. This article is by Steve Pokin. After Stephen Kleinsmith's departure as superintendent in 2018, the disease progressed more slowly than expected, but his mobility has declined significantly in the past 2 years. And it looks like we have a photo of Stephen Kleinsmith posing outside of his house in Millwood prior to his recent back surgery. This photo was, again, definitely not taken recently because there's no snow. Everything's green. In his vivid dreams, Stephen Kleinsmith is once again on the baseball field. His son Elijah says that he hears his father say in his sleep, "Focus on the ball." In his dreams, he's coaching kids playing baseball. Kleinsmith was a ball player in college long before he became superintendent of Nixa schools in 2000, and long before he was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease at age 50. He left Nixa in 2018 after giving the school board 3 years of notice. And now we have a photo of a news clipping provided by Carrie Kleinsmith, and it's a photo of him back in his baseball days, and looks like he's welcoming his the people he's playing with. I'm drawing a blank, but he's shaking their hands. He was a pitcher and a catcher at Mesa Community College in Arizona, where he homered in his first at-bat. He played a year at Creighton University in Omaha and then 3 years in center field for Wayne State College in Northeast Nebraska. And it's his teammates. He's shaking hands with his teammates. Not sure how I could forget that word. Like I said, I don't do sports a lot. All right. Levodopa is behind the frequency intensity of his dreams. It's the main drug used to treat the muscle tremors of Parkinson's disease, a movement disorder of the nervous system that worsens over time. It is in those dreams that Kleinsmith, now 70, lugs out a triple or throws a laser gun down a runner foolish enough to try to score. "I love the sport," he says. "I still remember the smell of a catcher's mitt." Today, he shuffles with the help of a cane. His facial muscles are rigid, and although his mind is sharp, his speech is labored. The speech impairment is called aphasia. The disease initially progressed more slowly than expected. In retirement, he and his wife Carrie moved out of the Nixa School District into the Millwood subdivision in Springfield, where there is a golf course. He's an avid golfer and for years in retirement has golfed often. All right, we now have a photo of Carrie and Stephen Kleinsmith. It looks like they are at an event, maybe a wedding. They're dressed very fancy. They are both looking very sharp, and they're smiling very, very big. But his mobility has declined significantly in the past 2 years, Carrie says. Kleinsmith had his second back surgery a few weeks ago. He had a hip replaced in February 2025. He also had Crohn's disease, a type of inflammatory bowel disease that causes swelling and irritation in the digestive tract, which can lead to pain, severe diarrhea, and fatigue. "My number one problem this past year has been I have fallen on my hind end more than I can tell you," he says. And now we have a photo of Stephen Kleinsmith in his hospital bed after his second back surgery, and he's talking about his vivid dreams of baseball. Kleinsmith also has cellulitis, a skin infection. He has adult onset diabetes. I am the healthiest disease-ridden person you'll ever know, he says. From an early age, Kleinsmith wanted to be a school superintendent like his father, who headed the school district in Ralston, Nebraska, a suburb of Omaha. I was hell-bent on being a superintendent of schools, Kleinsmith says. There was nothing that was going to stop me. I lived a life that had that focus in mind. I had drive. I had a great deal of drive, and nothing would hold me back. We now have a photo provided by the Nixa School District in 2016 of Stephen as he reads to students. In reflecting on his life, Kleinsmith often mentions his father, who died from brain tumors at age 60. Dad was a good dad, he says. He worked hard. He taught me to have a positive attitude toward my profession and to make a career more so than a job. Above all else, it was important to have a work ethic. Kleinsmith started as a teacher and coach. Yes, he coached baseball. And then he took a series of administrative positions at different school districts, always with more responsibility and always with the objective of becoming a superintendent. Kleinsmith is proud of his career in education. He has a sense of achievement. He heeded the advice of his father. He worked hard and with passion. It was never just a job. But there's something bittersweet when he expands his field of view and looks back on his life in whole. He feels a tinge of regret. Throughout my life, I've had periods, long periods of being a workaholic, he says. Many people hear that and say, "Oh, aren't we special?" It's just being honest. There were many nights I was away from my boys and my wife. That can put stress on a family. No matter how hard you look at protecting your family from a father who's a workaholic, you drift into it and pretty soon it becomes a habit. Carrie and Stephen went on their first date in April 1989 and were married December 22nd the same year. She was a first-grade teacher and he was the principal of a private school in a nearby city. He was 33 and she was 26. Carrie never met Stephen's father, but realizes Stephen is like him in many ways. Yes, Carrie says her husband was a workaholic. I have several different things that I like and enjoy doing, she says. My job was my job, even though I loved it. His job was his whole way of life, but he grew with a dad that had that. He's also a very loving man. He's very loving with the boys and me, but his focus wasn't always on us. Carrie was a teacher first, and then a school counselor. She eventually worked with Stephen in the Nixa School District. They have two sons, Elijah, 32, who lives in Kansas City, and Jacob, 27, who lives in Springfield. When we had our oldest son, I think Steve just got more and more distant as far as just really career-focused, she says. We both wanted to have another child. But before having a second child, Carrie says, Stephen promised they would not move for another 4 years. Nevertheless, Jacob was born 18 months later, and they promptly moved to Nixa, where Stephen had the job he always sought, superintendent. Once in Nixa, Carrie was reluctant to move again, but Stephen often was contacted by various school districts, including Springfield, that were interested in hiring him. He was in demand. He would not have stopped applying and moving, Carrie says. I think at some point I don't know that I would have followed, especially knowing he would just be more focused on his new job. I don't want to predict negativity, but I think that I would have resented that, and that's not a good thing to have in a marriage, she said. Everything changed when Stephen was diagnosed with Parkinson's. He stopped entertaining the notion of moving to a different, bigger school district. I wish I would have learned the lesson that I needed to learn without having Parkinson's, he says. But Parkinson's was the vehicle that put me in check. I think it brought us closer than ever before. We thought we had a good marriage. We did, and we do. And I've been married for 37 years, but it had a way of bringing us together. It's all worked out, Carrie says. You know, life just does. Stephen had an infection in his elbow and went to see a doctor. The nurse said, "Oh, and by the way, you have a tremor in your finger and you need to have that checked out." He eventually went to the Mayo Clinic to check it out, to rule out Parkinson's. Instead, it was confirmed. I was 50 years old, he says. I was at the top of my game, and I had opportunities throughout the state, including one in our own backyard. I was just at the prime of my career when I got kicked in the groin. It was Parkinson's, and I thought, holy crap, it was a major disruption in my goals and aspirations, not to mention being a father. Carrie remembers thinking, he's 50, and I'm 43, and we have a 7-year-old and a 12-year-old. I guess I felt like my job as his wife was, we have to accept this and we have to move on from this. We can grow closer with this. And that's exactly what happened. The boys were too young to feel the impact of the diagnosis. I was sort of optimistic in a way that maybe only a kid would be with... Let me restart. I was sort of optimistic in a way that maybe only a kid would be about it, Elijah says. I don't recall that it really emotionally impacted me as a kid so much, certainly not as much as it has more in recent years, where you see him struggle more. I remember thinking by the time it starts getting bad, they'll have figured something out, Elijah says. It's come a long way, but it's a progressive disease, and I don't know that they're any closer to a cure. Elijah says he is often asked how his father is doing. It's not like one day I'm going to say he's doing so much better, he says. The truth is that it's moving in one direction. It's always sort of getting worse over time. You're kind of bracing for the future in some ways, but you just tackle one thing at a time. Both sons see their father as career-oriented, but not necessarily a workaholic. He was still very, very present, Elijah says. He would always make it home for dinner and was still a great dad growing up. Their father always made it to their sporting events and coached them in baseball. He has this intuition about him that is remarkable, Elijah says. He tends to be right about stuff a lot. So much so that I don't like to let him always know when he is. He just has this remarkable intuition for the types of advice you might need. Jacob says it is hard for him to see the disease progress. That's been the hardest thing for me as his son to witness, he says. I struggle with this whole thing. It's anticipating the grief of the disease taking over my father. Elijah remembers the time in high school when he told his father he was done with sports and wanted to focus on speech and debate. He says his father responded well and respected his decision. Jacob recalls when he told his father he was done with baseball. His father didn't miss a comedic beat and asked him, "Where do you plan on living?" Brent Dunn was on the Nixa school board 14 years. 12 of those were when Kleinsmith was superintendent. And we now have a picture of Brent Dunn. He is the MSU vice president for university advancement. He has an incredible sense of humor, Dunn says. Oh my gosh, we'd be in tears laughing so hard. Kleinsmith was known and respected in education circles throughout the state. He has a good sense of public education and what it would be like in the future, Dunn says. It seems to me he was always ahead of the time, and he loved being with students. That is what drove him, and he truly believed in public education. We now have a photo of Stephen Kleinsmith. He's sitting with his students. Looks like outside of their school on some stairs. When they're not sitting, they're standing. Some are sitting, most are standing. And all of his students are holding cardboard cutouts of his face and putting it over their face. So it's just a bunch of Stevens in this picture. Nixa was and still is a great school district. He was so dedicated to the district. But I think he was more dedicated just to the idea of keeping up with public education and the trends. We had a lot of growth in Nixa during his time, and he understood financing. He was great with legislators. He was a great relationship builder with the community. Kleinsmith says the most important leadership skill for a superintendent is communicating effectively with various audiences. He viewed his job as the conductor of an orchestra. As a superintendent, you can't be an expert in everything. You hire the best and brightest leaders of curriculum, instruction, budget, finance, custodial maintenance, food service, transportation. I was not somebody hired to be an expert at school finance, Kleinsmith says. I hired the best finance director in the state. There was no need to compete with her skill set. I just need to provide leadership. Kleinsmith was referring to Brenda Rance, the district's chief financial officer. Peggy Taylor was on the Nixa school board when Kleinsmith was hired in 2000. Here's what stood out when the board chose him. Personality and charisma, she says. He was such a people person. He remembered names, he remembered families, he remembered activities that were going on no matter what building. He came in and he wanted each board member to give him 10 names of people he needed to meet in his first 100 days on the job, she says. Kiera Loden says he knew Nixa would be a good place to work, in part because Kleinsmith held the superintendent's position for 18 years. And we now have a picture of Geir Loden. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing his name. And he replaced Kleinsmith as superintendent of Nixa schools. He says the fact that Kleinsmith was in Nixa for 18 years was a good sign. We're kind of like preachers, Loden says. If you see a preacher stay somewhere for a while, that usually says a lot. I think the research shows that superintendents generally stay 3 or 4 years. Dr. K, Kleinsmith, was here 18. Dr. K was easy to work with in the transition, Loden says. Very supportive, very pro-Nixa, very pro-education. Kleinsmith says he helmed a very good school district that has since become a great school district. Kleinsmith calls Keith Lutz his greatest mentor. Lutz was the superintendent of Millard Public Schools outside of Omaha in Nebraska. Kleinsmith worked in various administrative jobs in Millard, which is near Ralston, where Kleinsmith's father once was superintendent. Kleinsmith was working in Millard when hired by Nixa. He taught me the art of strategic planning, Kleinsmith says. He taught me the importance of effective communication. Lutz, 78, retired in 2014 after 20 years as superintendent. He wanted to be superintendent, and his logical step would have probably been to wait for me to retire. But I didn't retire till I was 67, Lutz says, so I got a hunch he was in a bigger hurry than that. He was super personal, had a very outgoing personality, and had a wonderful family, Lutz says. Carrie Kleinsmith says her husband still manages to gulp up life when he can. And we now have a photo of Stephen, and it looks like maybe they were throwing a disco at school. He's in front of a photo booth. It's got a bunch of disco balls, and he's wearing a really nice suit, like he's ready to disco, and his shoes look like they're a pearl shiny shoe, very disco-y. For everything he deals with, he really does live in a pretty positive state, she says. One day he can be like, you wouldn't even know anything's wrong with him, she says. Then we might have 2 or 3 days where he really struggles. Steve has always got rose-colored glasses on about everything, and so I never want to tell a story. I want him to tell a story. His perception of how he's doing is different than what I see sometimes. Carrie agreed to be interviewed for the story, but requested that she be interviewed separately so she and her husband could give their own individual perspectives. I just love him where he is, she says. That's my daily goal with him. I realize in my marriage, where I'm at with him and his health, on my good days I can serve love. My bad days are just part of it. That's okay too. Everybody's marriages are different. Mine is at a point where it's just more about serving love, showing up for him, and accepting him where he is. The cause of Parkinson's disease is not known. It is connected to the breakdown of nerve cells in the brain. There is no cure, but medication can help control tremors. More information about Parkinson's disease is available at the Parkinson's Group of the Ozarks. And this article is written by Steve Pokin. He writes the Pokin' Around and the Answer Man columns for the Springfield Daily Citizen. All right. Now I got another little fun article. Today is also National Geographic Day. The National Geographic Society was incorporated in Washington, D.C. on today's date in 1888 by a group of 33 scientists, scholars, businessmen, and explorers who had a passion for geography, science, and travel, and who believed Americans were taking more of an interest in the outside world at the time. Its founding goal was for the increase and diffusion of geographical knowledge. Today, it is one of the largest and most inclusive organizations in the world. 9 months after the Society got its start, National Geographic magazine, now named National Geographic, began being printed. The Society's 165 charter members received it. At the time, one had to be a member of the Society in order to receive the magazine. Almost unrecognizable compared to the National Geographic of today, the magazine was a scholarly journal and had few photographs. Gardiner Green Hubbard, the father-in-law of Alexander Graham Bell, was the first president of the National Geographic Society, and Bell succeeded him. The society was reinvigorated when Gilbert H. Grosvenor came in as the magazine's editor-in-chief in 1899. He made the magazine more accessible. The prose was simplified and became less technical. More first-person narratives were included, and photographs began being featured on a large scale. This led to the magazine's great popularity, with its circulation going from 1,000 to 2 million in only a few years. In the first decade of the 20th century, membership of the society went from 1,400 to 74,000, and in another decade it reached 713,000 and kept climbing. Grosvenor eventually became president of the society while still maintaining his role as editor-in-chief. And you can watch National Geographic for free on YouTube right after you get done listening to some of our broadcasts. All right, let me find y'all another story. Alrighty, this article is by the Springfield News-Leader. It is titled, "Less Funding for Homeless Could Make Ozarks Less Safe for Everybody." And this article is by Susan Zutch. I do apologize for mispronouncing that. About 75 people from various Ozarks community organizations, as well as teachers and government officials, gathered at the Community Foundation of the Ozarks building on Friday morning, January 23rd, despite the frigid temperatures. City of Springfield Senior Planner Bob Ashley and Community Partnership of the Ozarks Continuum of Care Director Emily Fessler highlighted permanent housing, on which COC spends most of its federal funds. However, federal funding for COC is currently up in the air, with litigation attempting to stop the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development from drastically shifting priorities. While Ashley and Fessler focused mainly on the effects to permanent housing, Fessler explained that the system supporting people with homelessness was much broader than that. Homeless services include prevention, outreach, emergency shelters, healthcare, behavioral health care, employment supports, and other long-term stability supports, Fessler said. No single program or solution can work on its own. Progress only happens when the entire system is truly understood and supported. Here are 5 takeaways from the presentation. Now we have a photo of a community partnership of the Ozarks Continuum of Care Director, Emily Fessler, speaking at the Community Foundation for the Ozarks building on January 23rd, 2026. During the meeting, she discussed the future of the program's funding as well as community impacts. Instead of a specific agency or department, Ashley explained, a local planning body called a Continuum of Care carries out the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's Continuum of Care program across the nation. The group that serves Greene, Christian, and Webster counties is called the Ozarks Alliance to End Homelessness and is composed of nonprofits, victim service providers, governments, public agencies, advocates, and people with lived experience to coordinate services. The City of Springfield is the lead agency of the OAEH and contracts with Community Partnership of the Ozarks for staffing responsibilities. The group has more than 125 partners. Each partner has a direct contract to receive funds from HUD, according to Fessler, so there isn't one specific date where funding shortfalls will be evident. Through innovation and collaboration with partner agencies, the Alliance implements a community-wide approach to ensure that episodes of homelessness are rare, brief, and non-recurring, Ashley said. Currently, OAEH has used its funding to prioritize permanent housing solutions. Typically, HUD's funding opportunities are a 2-year contract. OAEH secured a contract in 2024 and should not have to reapply in 2025, Fessler said. However, in July 2025, HUD announced it would run a fiscal year 2025 competition for funds. Due to the government shutdown, HUD did not release the competition until November, which included new direction for the COCs and changes who gets housing and how, according to Fessler. HUD's new funding opportunity shifted away from the housing first model of addressing homelessness, which is an evidence-based framework that was developed in the 1990s to address chronic homelessness. After securing permanent housing, people are offered the ability to choose supportive services such as case management, healthcare, substance use treatment, and employment support. Instead, the July 2025 opportunity focused on short-term interventions and changed the definition of what qualifies as a disability. Under the new guideline, only people with physical or developmental disabilities would be considered disabled, which would prevent people with chronic health conditions, mental health disorders, and substance use disorder from receiving assistance. The shift away from the housing first model will require large fundamental changes on how COC programs work. Shifts in a framework of this scale cannot be implemented quickly or incrementally. It requires fundamental changes to design, staffing models, contracts, data systems, and partnerships that have been in place and built over a decade of housing assistance in our community. Fessler said, adding that permanent housing programs are long-term investments, not just by OAEH, but by property owners and managers. Transitioning away from that structure involves unwinding existing agreements, reconfiguring entire systems, not just simply redirecting the funding locally. In late November 2025, 20 states, the National Low-Income Housing Coalition and the National Alliance to End Homelessness sued HUD to restore the prior notice of funding opportunity, calling the new conditions a virtual death blow to the COC program as it has operated for decades and will lead to predictability disastrous results. If HUD wins the lawsuit, it will reinstate the fiscal year 2025 NOFO, which includes capping the amount of money that can go toward permanent housing projects. Fessler said that loss of money and the permanent housing that goes with it will have repercussions for the whole community. Ultimately, the loss of permanent housing would make our community less safe for everybody, not just those who are experiencing homelessness, she said. Losing nearly $1 million in permanent housing units would increase demand for rentals overnight while supply shrinks, Fessler said, which would increase rent across for everyone and possibly price out middle-income households. More housing instability would also lead to more evictions, families doubling up in homes, and people being displaced into neighboring communities. Aside from the impact on the rental market, loss of funding to permanent housing will also impact the economy by significantly increasing visible homelessness, especially in commercial corridors, downtowns, and neighborhood business districts. When homelessness becomes more visible, it changes how people utilize our public spaces. It reduces the overall vibrancy of commercial areas with concerns around safety, cleanliness, and accessibility, Fessler said. Communities may be forced to direct public dollars away from economic development and revitalization toward crisis management, enforcement, and emergency response situations. The shortfall will also affect healthcare as people turn to emergency departments for shelter during extreme weather or mental health crises. This surge in volume would lead to overcrowding in waiting rooms, longer wait times, and delayed care for everybody, including those who have life-threatening conditions, Fessler said. It would also put more pressure on first responders, Fessler said, with police, fire, and EMS seeing an increase in calls due to homelessness, mental health crises, and medical emergencies, which would pull their focus away from public safety. U.S. District Judge Mary McElroy in Rhode Island issued a preliminary injunction on December 23rd that prevents HUD from enacting its 2025 Notice of Funding Opportunity. If the injunction remains in place, that 2-year NOFO structure will continue, Fessler said, which will renew funding for fiscal year 2024 projects. However, funding has already been delayed for several months. Even with renewal, the lapse in funding creates operational strain for housing providers, including delayed rental assistance, payments, and challenges to maintaining current staffing levels, Fessler said. These gaps will increase the risk of housing instability for the people that are currently being served through these programs. The second option is that HUD wins the lawsuit and that the department reinstates the fiscal year 2025 NOFO, which focuses on short-term interventions and changes how disabilities are defined. This scenario introduces additional uncertainty as funding amounts and eligible activities will change significantly from prior years, Fessler said. One of those changes would include a 30% cap on the amount of HUD funding and can go toward permanent housing. The OAEH currently puts more than $1.3 million, around 87% of its funding, toward permanent housing programs. The new cap would reduce that to $435,778.50, according to Fessler's presentation. Permanent housing is designed to provide long-term stability and prevent repeat episodes of homelessness. Reducing that capacity can increase the likelihood of people cycling back into homelessness. All right. And let's get another article. This one is kind of short. But we got some updates to our airport. This article is by Springfield News-Leader. It is titled, Springfield Airport Adds New Nonstop Destination with Seasonal Flights. This article is by Marta Mize. Springfieldians will soon have another destination to visit via direct flight from Springfield Branson National Airport. The airline announced Tuesday, January 27th, today, the addition of direct American Airlines flights to Phoenix. Beginning May 23rd, American Airlines will add a fifth nonstop route to Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport. The flights will be once weekly, only on Saturdays, according to an airport news release. It will be a seasonal service with flights offered from late May through August 1st. Tickets can be purchased at www.aa.com or through American's mobile app. We now have a photo of American Airlines airplanes at one of their airports, possibly in Phoenix. It does not look like Springfield's airport. We're eager to welcome travelers from Southwest Missouri on our new service to Phoenix this summer, said Jordan Pack, American's Director of Domestic Network Planning, in the release. As we've steadily grown our flights out of Springfield, travelers have responded positively. This has given us the confidence to add flights to Phoenix that will unlock more access from Springfield to the Southwest and Western U.S. Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport is a major hub for American Airlines, according to the release, offering nonstop service to more than 110 domestic and international destinations. The announcement comes from yet another record-setting year for the Springfield Airport. The airport saw 1.55 million travelers in 2025, up 9% from the previous year. All right, let's take an H2O break. And we're back. Alrighty. Let's find some more articles. Alright. We have another short story. And it is from Springfield News-Leader. It is by Marta Mize again. And this one is titled, 65-Year-Old Man Dies from Escaping West Springfield House Fire. A 65-year-old died after escaping a house fire in the early hours of Friday, January 23rd. Springfield Fire Department responded about 3 a.m. January 23rd to the 600 block of North Kansas Expressway in West Springfield, according to a Springfield news release. Upon arrival, firefighters found the home on fire and Paul Smart, age 65, outside the home with burn injuries. Immediate medical care was provided before Smart was taken to Mercy Hospital. He died of his injuries Saturday, January 24th, according to the release. The Bureau of Fire Prevention has ruled the fire was accidental. This is Springfield's second fire fatality in 2026. Prayers to the family. Alrighty. Well, let's go to some more what happened on this day in history. Alright, so on this day in history, in 2018, Ingvar Kamprad, who founded the home furnishings retailer IKEA, the world's largest retailer of furniture in the early 21st century, he passed away at age 91. In 2011, the Yemen uprising began as thousands of protesters, inspired by demonstrations in Egypt, rallied in Sana'a, Yemen, to demand the resignation of President Ali Abdullah Saleh and to call for political and economic reform. In 1976, the first episode of the sitcom Laverne and Shirley, a spin-off of Happy Days, aired on ABC. It starred Cindy Williams and Penny Marshall, who later became one of the first women to achieve consistent commercial success as a movie director. In 1973, the Paris Peace Accords, formally ending the Vietnam War, were signed, providing for an exchange of prisoners and for the withdrawal of U.S. forces from South Vietnam, although fighting continued until 1975. In 1880, American inventor Thomas Edison patented the incandescent lamp. In 1832, mathematician and novelist Lewis Carroll, remembered for Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and its sequel, was born in Daresbury, Cheshire, England. Well, now we know why it's called Cheshire Cat. All right. And another national day to celebrate. This is a fun one, and it might give you an activity to do later today. It's National Chocolate Cake Day. And there's no shame in overindulging in dessert day as long as it's chocolate cake. Made with melted chocolate, cocoa powder, or both, chocolate cakes were first baked in the late 19th century. The roots of chocolate cake go back to 1764 when Dr. James Baker of Boston ground cocoa beans with a water-powered mill that had 2 large millstones and made chocolate. But it was over a century until chocolate cake, as we know it today, was made. During the first half of the 19th century, whenever someone was called chocolate cake, it was yellow or spice cake that went along with a chocolate drink. And during the second quarter of the 19th century, white or yellow cake with chocolate icing became known as chocolate cake. So, get baking today. I know what I'll be doing when I leave. And I'm sure I can get that cake eaten in one sitting. Alrighty. Thank you for listening to the Blind Community Thrift Store radio reading service. Tune in every week, Monday through Friday, on the Blind Community Thrift Store's YouTube channel at 10 a.m. for more up-to-date news from the Springfield News-Leader, the Springfield Daily Citizen, and the Springfield Business Journal, and 417 Magazine. Listen after we are live on the Audio Reader Network at www.reader.ku.edu. All broadcasts are played over KSMU's subcarrier airwaves at 67 kilohertz on 91.1 from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday. Contact Audio Reader Network for information on receiving a pre-programmed radio. And thank you all for tuning in. We will see you soon.